The Castle and the Scroll, Part 4. As Justin spoke, my heart was touched with feelings from my childhood, feelings that I had buried years before. The desire of being part of a real family, devoted to each other, and devoted to the great king, was something I couldn't deny. I wanted it, more and more, with all of my heart. It was as if Lily was cheering me on, from some faraway place in the sky. It was as if she was telling me that I could trust the great king. I sat quietly for over an hour upon that wagon, thinking and feeling. More and more my heart was settled. I wanted to be a warrior for the great king. "Very well, then," I said at last. "How many days is it until King's Day?" Chapter 6. Justin allowed me to spend the night in his farmhouse. Early the next morning, we went to the site of my old home. The plot was still empty, used by a neighbor as a place for her sheep to graze. It was sobering to look upon that place, as well as Lily's home site, which was likewise empty. The neighbors were overjoyed to see me and agreed to let me build on my family's land immediately. I would make a simple home with a blacksmith shop attached, and would sell my goods in the market in the mornings. Justin said he and the others from the castle would help me. We began to lay the bottom logs down the next morning. Fortunately, with the money I received from William's death, in addition to my own savings, it would only take about a week to get my home built. Justin also introduced me to Simon, the local constable. He would be an important man to know since I was a laborer, and he the tax collector. Justin made the situation very clear to me. "Pay your taxes on time," he said, "and you won't have anything to worry about regarding Simon." The first day I arrived back at Ravenhill was a Tuesday, and I eagerly awaited King's Day. That week I and the others from the castle, along with hired laborers, worked on the blacksmithing cottage. I thought I saw from time to time a hooded figure from within the forest, not too far away, peering out from within the brush. He was far away, but I could tell he had a long white beard. I couldn't help but feel that he was looking at me. I wondered what kind of fool would set foot within the forest. By Saturday, my home and blacksmith shop were finished, with the exception of a few minor additions which I could do as needed. I was eager to begin my work in Ravenhill, and was also eager to start my training in the army of the great king. The next day was King's Day, and I went to the castle for the very first time. It was extremely intimidating, but Justin promised he would stay by my side and explain everything. As we approached the castle, I was able to see up close the weaponry I had always admired as a child. There were swords, shield, bows, and arrows. As we entered the castle, I could feel the love and acceptance that seemed to radiate from within. People greeted me with the handshake of true brotherhood and friendship. It was as if a family reunion was happening, and everyone loved each other. Conversation, smiles, and laughter filled the air. We then made our way to the great hall of the castle. There we all stood together, with the rays of the sun shining through the windows, and someone began a hymn of praise to the great king. All present pledged their undying love and allegiance to the great king through song. Afterwards we were all seated, and a man got up on the platform in front of the great hall. He was clad in full armor, and his sword was like nothing I had ever seen before. When he spoke, his voice boomed like a cannon. "Who is that man?" I asked Justin. "He's our captain," he replied. "Captain David. Every castle has a captain. They are the greatest of all warriors, and they often travel in the forest and kill dragons." I was awestruck. All those childhood years, just down the road from my home, was a group of warriors fighting for the great king, but never had I known that they had a captain. "Let us pledge our allegiance to the great king," he shouted. Everyone then repeated these words: "We live for the great king. We die for the great king. The dragon and his children will not avail. We will train. We will fight. We will have the victory." Another hymn of praise began. There were flutes and violins accompanying our voices. I felt like I was in a dream. I had no doubt left in my heart. This was the greatest opportunity given to mankind. My bitterness was lifted and true love was put in its place. I was a follower of the great king. My life would never be the same again. Then I saw the captain unroll a scroll and read from it. The words from that scroll cannot be adequately described in the space of his narrative. Suffice it to say, they were words like no mere man could form. Every word pierced my heart with the sharpness of an arrow, but with the gentleness of a father's embrace. I asked Justin about the scroll. "They are the words of the great king," he said enthusiastically. "He gave them to us so that we would know how to train for fighting the dragons, and so that we would never be led astray." A letter straight from the great king, I thought. It seemed too good to be true. Captain David then spoke of the scroll and what it said. We all sat and listened, and afterward sang a hymn of warfare. Then the captain asked if there were any who had chosen for the first time to serve the great king. All was still. Justin looked over at me. "You should go up to the front," he said. "I will if you come with me," I replied. We went together, and I met Captain David and told him about my choice to serve the great king. He brought me upon the platform and presented me to the gathering. They all cheered. 2 other men then came up upon the stage bearing a sword and a bow. They handed them to Captain David, and he presented them to me. "This day you have become a warrior of the great king," he said, aloud for all to hear. "We will teach you the ways of the sword and the bow. You will kill dragons." The entire congregation erupted in shouts of joy and victory. Captain David had me remain in front of the great hall, where nearly everyone in the castle greeted me and encouraged me. I left the castle that day with a transformed sense of purpose and destiny. I couldn't stop thinking about the great king. I was also fixed upon Captain David, for he seemed to me to be the greatest warrior I had ever met, and I longed to be like him. I asked Justin how people become captains. "There are great castles," he explained, "far from here. Certain men and women go there, and after much training they become captains. I wonder if I would ever go to a great castle." At the time it seemed like a far-off dream. I returned to my home that day excited and filled with joy. I knew my life would never be the same again. For the first time I had to acknowledge that Justin's words were likely true. The plan of the great king was best. During the following week, all I could think about was going back to the castle. I honestly wondered how everyone was content with only meeting once a week. I would have loved to meet and learn and worship together every day. Fortunately, I had Justin to answer questions for me. That next King's Day, I returned to the castle, and the experience was the same. It was wonderful, and I didn't want to leave. I continued to meet more people, all of whom were very kind and in love with the great king. I stayed until they began to close and lock the doors. I was able to visit some more with Captain David, and then walked home with an attitude of joy. I thought back to the fact that only a few weeks earlier, I was in the village of Greystone, hard-hearted and bitter towards the castle. Now I never wanted to miss a meeting. I was just about at my house when I heard a voice behind me. It was Justin. "Caleb," he shouted, "hurry! Captain David has called for you." Chapter 7. "Me?" I asked with surprise. "Yes," answered Justin excitedly. "There's an urgent need concerning a potential army recruit, and Captain David is putting together a small team and wanted you to be on it. You must come right away." Together we jogged to a small cottage by the river where Captain David and 8 other men were already gathered. "Ah," Captain David said as he noticed us. "Now we are all here." I then noticed a woman with 2 small children standing nearby. It appeared that she was a single mother and quite poor. She had 2 young daughters, around 2 and 4 years of age. Captain David put his arm around the woman. "Let me introduce you all to Mary. She is a kind woman, but she is all alone. Her husband fled nearly a year ago now, and left the burden of parent and provider on sweet Mary. We are here to make repairs to her home, encourage her, and love on the children." Mary smiled slightly with gratitude, though I could tell she was ashamed. The men and I worked on the house, spoke with Mary, and played with the children. This went on all throughout the afternoon and into the early evening. Captain David had brought supplies and tools, and so we were able to repair her roof, some breaks in the walls, and other simple house issues. We also took turns playing with the girls. They were sweet and innocent, and my heart hurt for them that they had to be raised without a father. I was able to attain more of Mary's story. Her husband was a man of ruined reputation. No one had heard from him since the day he left the village. Mary worked washing clothes in the river for the other families and barely made enough for her family to live on. I overheard Captain David talking to her. "We will try to help as we can," he was saying. "I hope that you will consider coming to the castle every King's Day. Your daughters need guidance, and the castle can offer it to you." Mary was extremely grateful for the services given to her and her family. We all said farewell to the sweet sisters, and I thought the younger began to cry as we left. My heart was touched, and I appreciated the castle all the more. If only I had been connected to the castle when my parents died, it would have saved me much trouble and pain. As we walked back to the center of the village, I visited with the other men with whom I had been working. One of them was unfamiliar to me. That is, I had never seen him before. I knew that his name was Paul, for I had heard the other men speak of him during our service that afternoon. "Paul," I said to him, "I haven't seen you at the castle. Have you been away on business?" "Not at all," Paul said cheerfully. "It's autumn, and so it's marble season. My younglings have had tournaments the last 3 King's Days. I was fortunate to have been able to make this service mission." "Marble season?" I asked curiously. "Of course," he said. "You know how to play marbles, don't you?" "Well, yes," I answered, "though I've only played a few times." "My son is on the village youngling marble team," Paul explained. "And they play these tournaments on King's Day?" I asked, a bit surprised. "Yes, they do," Paul said, with a voice of frustration at the situation. "They started doing that a few years back. My family and many others from the castle disapproved, but in the end, what could we do?" "Isn't it hard to miss the castle?" I asked. My shock caused me to lose my tactfulness. "Well, of course," Paul said, seeming a bit agitated at my question. "We are soldiers of the great king, so it's obviously very hard to miss the castle meetings. But what are we supposed to do? We want our younglings to develop well, and marbles is a special part of that, just as checkers is in the spring." "Checkers in the spring?" I said, not able to refrain my surprise. "You will have to forgive Caleb," Justin said, chiming in. "He had a different upbringing than most and isn't accustomed to our commitment to games." Paul nodded in a kind understanding. "I have actually found that games are a great way to increase your faith in the great king," said Aaron, another man who was there with us. "My son Jason always prays before his marble matches. He had his favorite verse of the scroll stitched on his marble carrier." "What verse is that?" I asked, curious of the conversation. "It is from the Book of Weaponry," Aaron answered. "It reads, 'The great king trains my hands for war.'" "That's a good one," Paul said. "My son has a verse on his marble carrier as well. It reads, 'I can win all battles by the power of the great king.'" I was quite taken aback by what I was hearing. These men were quoting verses from the scroll about warfare, battles, and the great king, and they were applying it to marbles. Justin remained calm and unmoved as we walked along, so I figured that my concern was misplaced. Unfortunately, however, my tongue wasn't able to hold back my thinking. "There's obviously nothing wrong with games," I began, "but don't you think you're confusing your children? When you miss the meeting of the great king for a game tournament, what does that teach them?" "Oh, please," Paul said, seeming upset. "No offense, but you're barely out of being your youngling yourself. Captain David encourages us in our games. You don't disagree with him, do you?" I remained silent. Shortly after, we came to the town square, and most of the men parted ways while Justin and I continued together. "You don't want to come across judgmental," Justin said. "We have to respect the convictions and commitments of others." "Forgive me," I said. "I know I'm still young, but I seriously don't understand. I'm confused." "Let me help you," Justin said sincerely, as was his way. "What don't you understand? We are soldiers of the great king, training together to fight dragons and win the battle, right?" "Absolutely," Justin agreed. "And we are commanded to meet together in the castle and train, correct?" "Right again." "Why then would a parent keep himself and his children away from the castle for something as silly and worldly as marbles?" I asked.